All right, so we're back at it again. We've got a good one today. We've got Mr. Rafael Morrison, Colonel Rafael Morrison. He is a squadron commander up there at Fort Hood. And so he's going to talk to us today about what defines success to you. So I hope you all enjoy what we've got to present to you today. Check it out. All right, Colonel Morrison, welcome to the show.
Hey, how y'all doing?
How you doing, sir? How you doing? How's your day going?
I can't complain on this lovely Texas Friday. It's all good. Thank you.
I hear you. The weather was nice somewhat today. Today marks a significant day. I think a lot of businesses are reopening as far as restaurants and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they can do what they do. I'm going to keep my tail at home. It's all good.
But I agree. Good choice. Good call.
Good call on that. I wanted to say thank you for coming out and participating in, this little group discussion thing that I've got going on. I had a chance to really work with a few other military leaders, and you stuck out, and I really appreciate that you took the time to come and talk with us. So today, I do know you want to talk about how do you define success, and I know you've got some presentation tools that you like to use. So first, before we go into that, can you give us a little bit of a background about who you are?
Oh, sure. First, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Bernard House for linking us up and getting this going. This is a great thing you got going on here, man. I'm super excited to be a part of it. I couldn't sleep last night, and I've been up all day. This has been the highlight of my day, so I'm super excited about it. Very long bio on Facebook, but the bottom line is I'm just a country boy from Southwest Louisiana, born in Lafayette. Joined the Army in 1997. I enlisted into the Army as just a regular 12 Bravo combat engineer. Later on, graduated from Southern University and A&M College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go Jags! In 2001 as an armor officer, and so I've as an armor officer, I've done all your typical armor officer stuff. Platoon leader, XO, troop commander, S3 at the battalion and brigade level. And now I'm squadron commander here in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, Fort Hood. I've also done a couple of what we call broadening assignments. I worked at HRC for 2 years. That was a long time ago. A lot of things have changed in the past. I left HRC in 2012, so a lot has changed, as you can tell from that. And then I've been an aide de camp twice, once at the 2-star level and once at the 4-star level.
Wow.
And I was a OCT at JRTC for about 20 rotations prior to.
So before you get into it, I know I got civilians watching also. What's an OCT?
I forgot about that, brother. I apologize.
All right.
So it's called observer controller trainer. So basically, there's 2 what we call combat training centers in the Army. Well, 3. There's one in Germany as well, but the 2 what we call DIRT CTCs here in the United States are the National Training Center at Fort Irwin and the Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, Louisiana. I was at the latter, JRTC, and basically what I did was brigade-sized elements, usually around between 4,500 and close to 5,000 personnel, come through the program. We do 10 rotations a year. Each rotation is about 2 weeks long. And what my job was I was kind of observing, coaching, and training, right? So I would observe their operations as they would matriculate through the 14 days, and twice during the process, I would make what we call after action reviews. So I would sit them down and I would kind of go over where I saw them struggling and then ways to get better and continue to get going. So I did that, like I said, for 20 rotations, basically 2 years. So that's what the kind of an OCT is. It's just kind of like when people like a Comet team or when something like a Lean Six Sigma or someone comes into your organization and kind of finds your efficiencies and finds where you could get better and streamline your processes is kind of the same type of thing in the Army. If I could do a
quality and control, quality and control, basically.
That's it. And then we weren't part of the unit. We just kind of offer suggestions and recommendations on how to refine their processes to make their organizations better.
Okay. So, you seem to have a pretty, I guess, long and very successful career.
Yes, I would. I could say that, and we'll talk about defining success here in a minute. It's a good segue.
That was the transition.
I like that. But
you like that. I appreciate it. I'm
definitely
trying to my journalism skills a little bit, right?
Yes, but definitely. I would definitely, after 22 years in the Army, consider my career successful. And like I said, we'll get into that here in a minute when we segue into the first part of it.
Wonderful segue, so smooth. But
it was.
Let's go ahead and so you've got a lot of military success in your career, but overall you've got success in your career. You've had the opportunities, I'm sure, to have received good mentorship, honest critique. I'm sure you've had hard times. I'm sure you've had a lot of good times as well. Yes. And so it's quite an honor for you to come and just talk to us about what you have noticed in your 22 years of military success, and I'm sure other adult successes. Everyone checking this out today.
Yeah, the honor is mine, man. Like, mentorship is a gift, right? It's a gift that you give, and it's one that you necessarily don't ask for a lot back in return. So. A lot of great people have paved the path for me to kind of be where I'm at in the Army. And so this is my way of paying it forward, and these are just my opinions and my thoughts. If you glean a couple of good nuggets out of it, that's awesome. And if you just say, Colonel Morrison's full of poop, then I'm okay with that too. Right. But that's this is what I've learned, and I want to share it, and hopefully it helps someone, at least one person out there, kind of get something from what we're going to talk about.
Okay. So you sent some slides over that we will use to go ahead and guide the discussion. In between, you're going to have folks sharing comments, etc. Let's kind of jump into some of the comments before we get into the presentation.
That's quick.
So we've got some folks saying, Rafael Morrison, proud of you. Oh, absolutely. We've got some Jaguar first, sir. Okay, I hear you. We've got.
You know who they are? Because I can't see who they are. It just says Facebook user.
They're in separate groups, so I can't tell who they are right now. But when we go into those groups, it'll show who they are. We've got Miss Price saying the visuals are so clear. Yes, it is so clear. We're trying to upgrade our stuff over here now.
Yes, this ain't no ghetto show. This for real. This legit. I like it.
For real.
I like it. I like it.
We've got Ms. Tiff. She said, thank you, sir, for your service and mentorship. Okay. I'm
waiting to hear back from her about her CGSC class. I think she said she wanted me to pipe into her CGSC class or to listen in on something. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Okay. So let's go into some of the slides. Okay, let's go. You sent 3 of them, and let's just have this discussion. Let's go ahead and do that.
First of all, I will say the creative design of this is all Otis. So if you're thinking that Colonel Morrison is some type of a computer genius, it did not look like this when I gave it to him. Okay, it was just a white piece of paper with black writing on it. So I appreciate to make it look as professional as it does. I truly do.
It's good. It's all good.
So I've been thinking about this topic in particular for about the past 60 days, primarily because I've reached a point in my career where I could retire literally tomorrow. It wouldn't be that quick, of course, but I could drop my paperwork tomorrow. You know what I mean? And not just that, but as a battalion commander, I've counseled more people than I've ever counseled in my 22 years in the Army. Between the 27 lieutenants, 7 troop commanders, 6 staff captains, 2 field grades, 2 sergeant majors, I've counseled a lot of people. And, the questions that I asked them a lot are, hey, what's your long-term plan? And long-term for them is really, for me, it's 5 years, right? So what's your 5-year plan? Mm-hmm. And then, if they say they want to stay in the Army, that's great. But then I tell them, you really got to think about how will you define a successful career for you? For you is the key. For you. The Army will tell you 20 years lieutenant colonel. That's the definition of the Army. for success.
Mhm.
Well, what if you don't want to do 20 years? Okay, let's just say you're in it for the next 4 to 8 years. Well, what do you want to do as you transition to the civilian sector? You can look back and say, you know what, I had a pretty good career, I had a pretty successful career by my definitions in the Army. Of course, none of us wants to get put out of the Army because that's the equivalent of getting fired. So nobody wants that. So that's the other end of the spectrum, right? That's what a non-successful career looks like, for lack of a better word. And so I broke it down into kind of these 4 categories, and I'll expand a little bit upon each. So is it time-based, right? Are you saying, hey, if I do 20 years in the Army, if I just make it, or you, and for the sake of the civilians, you just take the word Army out and you put IBM, Google, Amazon, whatever. If I do, now their pension system may be different, of course, but hey, if I do X amount of years and I retire wherever I'm at, I'm good. If I just survive, if I just ride it, to me, that's successful. Or is it, hey, if I just stick with this company until I'm 55 and I get out, get Social Security, that's successful to me. Just surviving, or if you find that niche in your job, like I'm here where I want to be. I love what I do. If I could just continue to do this until I'm 55, or continue to do this until I reach 20 years, I will consider myself successful in my career. When I came in the Army, I was in the second column, right? I was conditions based until I stopped having fun, right? But how do you quantify that? Because I've had some not fun times in the Army, right? And I'm still here. So I will caution against conditions based, because a lot of conditions aren't. It's not really easy to quantify. And a lot of times, especially in the Army, we make decisions to stay in or get out based upon personalities. I'm about to get out this Army because this dude right here sucks, right? Well, you're in the Army. This isn't IBM. You're not going to be with this person for 20 years. Either if you're an officer in particular, in the next 2 years, either you or them are going to be gone, right? So can you tough it out for that term? Positions based also depends on what rank you decide you want to get out of the Army, or what grade of leadership in the civilian world you want to get out of the Army. Is it middle management? Is middle management? Is it executive level? Is it CEO type stuff? Like if I just want to be a captain, then I say, what I really want to do is be a company troop battery commander. And then I'll have a successful career and I'll go on and I'll do things in the civilian world. And then you take the steps to get to that. Same with a CEO, but you got to understand they ain't got but one of them. So what steps are you going to take to make that happen? Right. And I'll get into a little bit here in a second about what happens when something knocks you off that path. Well, what do you do? Okay. Or is it rank based? Hey, if you're in the GS level, hey, once I make it to GS 14, and that could be a combination, right? Once I make it to GS 14 and I reach 20 years, to me, that's successful. In the Army, 9 times out of 10, if you reach the rank of colonel, you're over 20 years. If you say, hey, I want to be a general officer, okay, well, it's kind of like being a CEO, right? The percentages are so small. I'm not saying your goals are unrealistic, but there's a lot of work that goes involved with that. And a lot of stars have to align, literally, not figuratively, to get you where you got to get to. And so what I noticed I did in my own personal career is that as you move up the ranks, even the civilian sector, you'll start rowing, right? And you'll start impressing people, right? You'll start impressing your management, right? Then they link on to you and they say, hey, Otis, man, like, I want to set you up for this executive management program here with the firm, with the company, right? And then what do? Well, that's your mentor. That's the person you look up to. So you go, Roger that, man, I'm in. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, why on God's green earth did I just accept this program, right? So part of it is, and in the Army, it's the same thing. Once you make major and get into lieutenant colonel, you got a lot of people grabbing onto you, especially those who see potential in you. Yeah. But a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put their definition of success on you and try and make you believe that's success, right? So, hey, I'm gonna make you a general officer, Rafael. I don't want to do that. No desire to do that, right? So, you have to have the moral courage to say, you know what, sir, ma'am, I appreciate that to death, but that's not how I would define success for myself. And either they'll say, Roger that, and they'll write you off, or they'll say, okay, I got it. Well, let me at least make you the best, whatever it is you want to retire at, or whatever you want to do. Those are people you kind of hold on to. But what I did was I saw myself trying to mirror mentors of mine and do jobs that when I took a step back and looked at it, I went, I do not want to do that. Right. But that's because they were defining success for me. Right. You got to do this. You got to do that, man. You got to be a brigade commander, man. You got to be a, well, that's great. But no one kind of asked me what I wanted to do. Right. Like maybe that's not in my wheelhouse. Maybe I'm at the bottom. Maybe I'm a colonel at 20 some odd year guy, but you got to have the moral courage to say that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So how do you develop that moral courage? How do you say to that mentor who's been guiding you so well, hey, I don't think this is the thing for me. How do you develop that moral courage to do that?
Well, it depends on where you're at in the Army and what's important to you. Right. So for me, what's important to me is, when I build my house on this 10 acres of land out here in Texas, I want to have 2 rocking chairs on the porch, right? And the rocking chair to my left is going to be my wife. It's not going to be some general officer. It's not going to be somebody else that I've interacted with. And it's not going to be the Army, right? It's going to be my family. And if I do make a decision like that, it's for them. So having, and plus I'm over 20 years, man. So if someone gets mad at me, they just get mad, right? I just drop my retired paperwork and then they'll forget about me in 4 years, right? But if you're that young captain, or you're that young lieutenant, or you're that young, junior management level, it all goes, it's all internal, right? Like you have to be happy with yourself and the position that you're in, right? Because the reason, and you got to ask yourself, why don't I have the courage to do it? Well, they're going to be mad at me, or they're going to write me off. Okay. So you're going to put yourself in a position that you hate, right? And for those of us who've worked in a job that we hate, we know the second and third order effects of that. It impacts everything. It impacts your family. It impacts your kids. No one wants to be around somebody who is grumpy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right, especially self-inflicted grumpiness, right? Which means that you have the opportunity to take another position that probably would have made you happy and probably would have met your goals of success, but you chose not to because you wanted to make somebody else feel good and you wanted to not hurt somebody else's feelings, right? Like at the end of the day, man, like I say, if you think this person is going to be in that rocking chair next to you, sipping lemonade and watching the sun go down, then albeit make sure you take care of them. But if they're not, you got to look at it that way, man. Because at some point in time, whether you work for Google, Amazon, or the Army's been around 270 plus years, right? Lieutenant Colonel Morrison has been on the planet for 41, right? So the Army has been gone before me. And when Lieutenant Colonel Morrison drops his paperwork, the Army is going to keep on going until it's a gabillion years old, right? The same with Google, the same with Amazon. So it all gets into, at some point in time, you got to start saying, I'm doing what's best for me and for my family. And if you don't understand that, and that's how you approach it, say, hey, sir, look, hey, sir, ma'am, I would love to do that, but it's not in the best interest of me and my family, or my family and I. I've seen people do that. The hours you have to commit, things like that, that's just not conducive to me, to my family plan, right? Like maybe I don't want to go to every practice, but I want to go to every game, right? Yeah. And I've seen the way y'all work around here, and that's just not what I want to do. I don't want to live in this office. I've lived in offices before, and I've hated it. Yeah. So I think that's how you do. I think if you start looking internally and realizing that at the end of the day, it's you and your loved ones that once you hang up the Army's outfit, or once you hang up the suit and tie, or once you hang up the scrubs, or whatever it is, it's those people to your left and right that have been there since the beginning. Your mom, your dad. A lot of people have taken jobs, these tough jobs, and they've missed burying their parents, right? They've missed all these things in their life for what? At the end of the day, the Army is going to tell you, as an example, there's no more room at the end, brother, right? So thank you for your service. And like I said, you're going to have 2 rocking chairs or 1. That's on you. That's your choice.
I got you. Well, we've got some comments coming on. Let's go ahead and read some of the comments. We got from Tiffany again. She said, "Can you define work-life balance?"
Doesn't exist. Next question.
It doesn't exist.
I'm being honest. I mean, I could tell you the politically correct answer, or I could tell you the truth. So the vice chief of the staff, now the chief of staff of the Army, when I was at pre-command course, he had a diagram, right? And it had like essential, non-essential, a bunch of different categories. The balance is a conversation, right? So like I just said, maybe you can't make it to every practice, but you make it to every game, right?
Yeah.
In my squadron, the standing rule is soldiers are not allowed to miss critical family events, right? And everyone goes, well, sir, what's a critical family event? Easy. A critical family event is a family that is an event that once it happens once, it's not going to happen again. Yeah. Birth, death, what's it called? Like if your son's a high school senior and he's pitching in the final home game of his own baseball game. He's pitching in the very last one. He'll never pitch, he'll never be a starting pitcher again in high school. You don't miss that. Anniversaries, you may have to miss a couple unless you plan on getting a divorce. That anniversary is going to roll around again next year, right? My wife is a lot more draconian than I am, but like birthdays between 1 and like 5 ain't going to remember them, right? All they're going to do is just put their face on the cake and call it a day, right? So you got to think about those types of things. And that's the balance. The balance is, hey, I can't get you every practice, but I get you every game.
Yeah.
The balance is, hey, I'm going to be at every single critical event, births, deaths. You would hope marriages, right? So those things that only happen once, that won't happen again. So that I think that's how you balance it. It's a give and take, and it's like my son played football for the first year this year. So when I wasn't at NTC or in the field, I was at practice, and I didn't miss a game unless I was in the field or if I was. But I made a concerted effort to do that. And as a battalion commander, you have a lot more free time. You can control your schedule a little more than just a regular person, But that's how I would balance it. Is you got to determine with your spouse or with your family what's those critical family events, and you make a pact that you will not miss those critical family events. And then you determine what are those important events, practices, anniversaries, things like that. That's like I may miss a couple of them, but if I am free, I am there. And then you figure out those ones that's like, we could probably if I'm not there. It really won't make a difference. It's going to make a difference regardless. But if I had the choice of doing something, I'm going to take the critical and the important, and then I'll go to that first. That's how you kind of do it, in my opinion. That's how I've seen it work.
Okay. So, sir, regarding this slide, you got anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah. So once you define success, you have to also think about what happens if you get bumped off the rails, right? What will happen if you get knocked off that path. So in the Army, it's easy. There's a lot of pretty much clear paths to certain ranks, right? Especially for an officer. But what you have to ask yourself then is if I get knocked off that path, what do I do? Right? Do I fight and claw and give every inch of my being to get back on the path, right? But there's a sacrifice. What's left in your wake? You know what I'm saying? Or do I carve out a new path and redefine what I think success is? Because I will tell you, let's just say I'll use the Army, and I apologize for our civilian folks who may not be able to relate, but let's just say battalion commander is kind of where I'm at now. Well, there's certain things, especially in the combat arms field, that you got to do to be a battalion commander, right? You got to do a couple of key jobs as a major, and you got to do them well, right? We have evaluation systems. You got most qualified is the top 49%, highly qualified, and it goes down from there. When you look at how the results of the board are kind of analyzed, they'll tell you that, hey, you got to have, if you want to be competitive battalion commander, you got to have 2 most qualified OERs, 2 most qualified top of the top evaluation. What if you don't? What if your first one is not that? Then what do you do? Okay, well, if your second one is the most qualified, okay, you're still kind of in the hunt. But what an assignment officer is going to tell you is you got to keep rowing, man. You got to keep rowing to get back on that path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go there and you can roll your butt off. And at the end of the day, retire as lieutenant colonel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because promotion rate to lieutenant colonel, it kind of it ebbs and flows between the mid to high 80s to the mid to high 90s, right? And so, like I said, maybe you redefine success. Maybe you say, you know what, success for me now is lieutenant colonel at 20 years. And why is that? Well, hell, you could be lieutenant colonel at 20 years. You could retire at 42 years old and get a whole other career. Oh, by the way, you got a pension the rest of your life. Hello.
Yep.
Like, so that's not bad. Not a bad gig at all. Not to mention if you get some type of disability, man, you get some type of disability check on top of that. That's not a bad gig. Now you're just working because you want to work, or you're working in something that's truly your passion. If the Army is not your passion, so you got to think about, when you get bumped off the path, how are you going to handle it? At some point in time, you may. If you're a superstar stud muffin, you just keep on that trajectory's top. You ain't got to worry about it. But that's the top 1% of the Army, or a top 1% of a corporation that makes, CEO or upper management, CEO, CFO, things of that nature. GS 15, 16, SCS 1, 2, 3, all that same equivalent. Yeah, that's not everybody. That's the top of the top. So those folks have been tracking from the beginning, right? So if you get bumped off, how do you redefine success?
Okay,
that's what I would say.
Do you want to jump into the next slide, sir?
Hey man, I'm all about it. I'm fired up now.
Right.
I got my groove going. I'm warmed up.
Here's the next one. Leading in a new normal. Leading in a new normal. Y'all go ahead and make sure you send in your comments, your questions. If you'd like, you could leave the comments and questions. We actually see them and we read them and we answer them. So let's talk about leading in a new normal. We are definitely in a new normal. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. COVID-19 has turned everything upside down. So I would say, before you get into explain, I would say it takes a flexible, manageable sort of person. The military is all about it. You got to be flexible sometimes, because sometimes you may, the things that you think, the way how it's supposed to be, may not turn out the way how you're supposed to be, as you mentioned before. So you've got to adjust accordingly to how things are. So I'd like for you to expand more on this slide here.
Oh, will do. You got to be innovative too. I would add innovative into your list of adjectives you just so eloquently laid out for me. So I'll talk about the first one, right? So every organization has energy, right? I don't care if it's the Army or if it's Google, right? You have organizational energy defined as what you spend your time on, right? What I've noticed here in the new norm is I was able to streamline my organizational energy. We've all seen it. For the first time in my 12 months of command, my meetings were actually, they got done in an hour. It was like scheduled for an hour, and in an hour we was disconnected from the phone call, right? Normally, when you get everybody in this big conference room face to face to talk about something, people think that their stuff is important or it's relevant, or they try and get that little 5-10 seconds of FaceTime. And that keeps on going until, your meeting's 2 hours, 3 hours. So the good thing about the digital environment is if you ain't required, you ain't invited, right? So, there's no one kind of like creeping into your room, or you young kids will say, sliding the DMs, what I'm saying? Ain't none of that going on. Like if you ain't got the link, you ain't getting in. You know what I'm saying? So what that did was that, you stick to the bottom line up front. You got your little 1 or 2 slides, and then you keep it moving. And it also alleviates that the typical, everybody says it because no one's prepared for the secondary question, right? They put their slide up and they ready to just brief and sit down. But then when you come back with a question, it's like, I got to get back with you, right? Well, it alleviates that because everybody's sitting behind their computer, right? So it's like, hey, I see this thing on the slide. What do you think about that? All right, give me a second, sir. They click on some folders. The answer is 7 or whatever it is, right? Because everything they could possibly have to answer that question is at their disposal because we're all, tethered to a computer in some kind of way anyway. Versus they bring a little green notebook to the meeting, that has their grocery list in it. That's about it. And so then when you hit them back with the follow-on question, they like, I got to get back with you, sir. But now everything you could possibly use to get back with me is sitting right in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean by a streamlined organizational energy to where we're not wasting time anymore. Secondly, it forced us to empower our junior leaders, the sergeants in the organization. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't. Like, I can't have a formation of my 600-man organization and look everybody in the eye and put out all this information that I want to put out. Right? I can't do that. If I want to get fired, I can. Right? Or if I want to end up on Army WTF moments, I could definitely do something like that. Right? But
Yep.
I can't do that. So what I have to do, and it's kind of like a telephone game, but I tell troop commanders and first sergeants, and it trickles down, and it's really that sergeant that's making the decisions, and that's getting the information I need, and that's really checking on our soldiers. Like in my organization, you got twice daily checks, right? One could be a text because that's all we do right now, but the second one has to be a phone call, a FaceTime, or something to where you hear the human being's voice or you see the human being's face to know that they're alive and know that they're well, know that they're good. And so if nothing else comes out of this, they know their soldiers more than they've ever had before. Now, the risk in that is that when we go back to state operations, it's kind of like we give them the key and tell them to drive around. And once we go to steady states, we say, all right, good, just park it and give me the keys back. Right. And now they're just like, what happened? I was doing so good, so we gotta try and make sure we don't revert back to what I'll talk about next, which is a historical norm. And then if you look at the social distancing guidelines and the number of people that can gather, that is ideal for the junior leader. That is ideal. No more than 10 people, that's a squad for me, right? Yeah. That's perfect. That if I can't get more than 10 together, that means that's all y'all can take y'all little group and go do whatever y'all want to do. Just make sure it's safe. Make sure it's within the guidelines of social distancing. And if you can't social distance, you got a mask on your face, and it's great. Stay out of all these big congregated areas and you'll be good. And I think a lot of people, not just in the Army, but in the civilian sector, are challenging historical norms, right? So, it's like, well, Otis, you can't stay at home and work. I need you to come in this office every day, right? Well, heck, maybe for the past 2 months you've been at home, and you're like, well, man, your productivity has skyrocketed since you've been at home. Yeah, right to that. Why? Because I could be in my underpants doing my work, right? I could relax, have a little ham sandwich, take a break, take a nap, come back, productivity. And oh, by the way, I could work 12, 14, 15 hours if I wanted to, if I chose to, right? My wife won't let me stay at the office for 12, 15 hours a day. It's not going to happen. But throughout the day, from, 5:30 in the morning when I wake up to go to do PT to about 9 o'clock at night when I go to bed, because I'm old, within that time frame, I could almost work 5, 6, 7, 8 hours at a time. I take a chunk here. Once I finish with the kids, a little online TV school, take an hour here, take an hour there, because everyone's doing the same thing. So, ain't nobody really waiting for me to give no report because they're all at home, for the most part. So you become more productive. So, when they can say, oh, it's just impossible for you to work from the house. You're like, well, I've been doing it and they go, well, Otis has been home for 2 months now and he is super productive. Like, yeah. So maybe I can telework. Or maybe now, when you told me I couldn't live in Dallas and work in Killeen, which is a 2.5 hour distance, maybe now I can. Maybe now I could telework and get the exact same productivity, especially if you're not a people person, meaning you're not interacting with human beings every day. You could probably do that. And in the Army, one thing, the Force Com commander, the 4-star came down and my boss, asked us for feedback on what have we not been doing that I think we should not continue to do. And it hurt me to my soul a little bit, but I said organizational PT, right? Why are we doing that? Why not just tell a squad leader or a junior leader, first formation's at 9 o'clock. You got to execute PT in the morning and figure it out. Because I've been in the formation for a year now, and I've seen section level PT, and I've seen soldiers in an organization become less fit and more fat, right? Because you start at 6:30, then you stretch to about 6:45, Then you go do whatever you gotta do. Then you gotta be back by 7:20 so you can get ready and do, like here we do it's what's called the regimental accolade, where it's a call and response thing we do after PT. We do it at 7:30. So you gotta get ready. You gotta get back so you can stretch. So when you're done stretching, you can do the regimental accolade. So that's 6:45 to 7:20 is what you got. I don't do math in public, but that's not an hour, right? So, but if I want to do a 12-mile ruck march, I can't do that. Can't do it in an hour. But if you tell me I got to be to work at 9, I can step off at 5, right? Be back in time to have get my soldiers something to eat, and then I could go and be there for your 9 o'clock formation. Even if you say you ain't got to do it during PT hours, just do it an hour and a half a day between 9 and 16:30 or whenever. I don't care when you do it, just an hour and a half a day. That way you could stagger people. At lunchtime, a squad could go to the gym, or, hey, at 1300, we're going to break off and we're going to go do the Beaver Fit boxes and do some CrossFit. It relieves the pressure on the gyms, because between 6:45 and 7:20, the gyms on post, at least Fort Hood, is like, you might as well stay at home, right? And we got a very finite amount of those, gym in a boxes, and everyone kind of flocks to it because the gyms are so packed. But if you spread it out throughout the day, you relieve that pressure. But that's giving those junior leaders, empowering them to say, and you got metrics to evaluate it, right? You got the ACFT, you got the Army body fat composition program, right? And and other thing, if you start with PT, it's very easy to suck back up if trust is broken, right? Yeah. So if you're not doing it, your squad is not meeting the standards, they're not doing what you're supposed to do, whoop, you can suck that right back up into the platoon, right? And now no harm, no foul. You just broke trust, so now you're back to doing what I want you to do. Gotcha. That's a tough one. I don't know if they're gonna buy off on it, but that was my pitch. And I think the last one is very key, is and it gets back to what the first thing I said, is truly leveraging social media, right? For information distribution and for flattening out the organization. I could care less about what you had for lunch, right? Or your 17th selfie. That's really irrelevant to me. What I do want to know is, I want to hear when the 3 Corps, DCG puts his general order number 1 out, right? Because he did it over Facebook. He has a couple of Facebook posts, actually, Facebook live videos. And then, we did a Facebook town hall, right when this thing started, which was not a good idea, because we were the first ones in the shoot. So we got all the, the soldiers are, while my soldier going to work and all that, and we got all that, and it was good. It was all good stuff. But I was able to reach 400 plus people, and but more importantly, that includes families, right? A lot of times when you come to families, we're relying on the telephone game. All right, I tell Private Morrison, make sure your wife knows that tomorrow they got an Easter egg hunt, in the Squadron area. Roger that, sir, and they never get it. And then I get on Facebook and they tell me, why didn't they know about it? But this generation in particular, I mean, they'll leave their dog at home but take their phone, right? So you go to Facebook and you put something on Facebook and it reaches the masses, right? Yeah. And
good and bad.
Yeah, and things I can't do. Like, I can't get, I got 570 soldiers in the organization, right? I can't get them plus their families in any venue where I could tell them everything I want to tell them. So I could put a Facebook video and they could watch it now, they could watch it later, they could comment now, they could comment later, they could share it, they could do whatever, they could share it. So my troop commanders could take it on their SFRG pages and share it. And now we're flattening out the organization, including families, right? A lot of times we exclude them by just telling the soldier stuff. But now, now they can look at their husband and be like, hey, why didn't you tell me about this Easter egg hunt? I'm like, oh, my bad, But like you said, but it can be dangerous, especially if you're not well versed in social media and how to talk to people. It can go south, so that's where your PAOs and where, your training comes in, and where you make sure you're nested with the themes and messages of your organization, to where you don't go out there, especially make promises. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough. Like the comments you got here are great. You know what I'm saying? And they're very, and I truly appreciate it. They're not all positive though. I mean, the first Facebook Live town hall I did reference COVID. Woo, it was tough, and you read that, man, and you want to give them the business, right? But you can't, right? You can't really, you got to take emotions out of it and put yourself in their shoes and say, hey, look, They're just trying to get information. They're getting it from CNN, Fox, the Facebook pages. They're getting everything. They're trying to dissect it all. And for the Army, when you put yourself out there in front of the screen, I don't just represent 4th Squadron, 3rd Cavalry Regiment. I represent the Army, right? And so why is the Army not, and it's just a disconnect between the civilian world and the military in terms of who makes decisions. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison, I can decide what color the door is in my office, but that's about it, right? To figure out why we're on a curfew here at Fort Hood ain't my decision, right? I got to abide by it just like you do. But yeah, I think those are the ways you can lead. And then what you can't do is you can't rush to come out of this. And what you can't do is forget the lessons that you learned while you're in here and continue those on to make your organization better. Whether it's the Army or whether it's, waste management company or whether it's Whataburger, right? We all have a new normal, and some things are working. Some things aren't working, right? But it's all learning regardless.
Just a little thing I just noticed. If you ever wanted to key this to remember it spells out, if you look on the screen, it spells out SECT. So what's your sect?
Yeah, I didn't even know that, brother.
Just something corny that I noticed, but
that's why you get paid the big bucks.
But let's jump into the next slide.
Someone asked about sustainment ops.
Oh, hold on. Let's go back.
Did I miss that or what?
She's just making a comment. How do you tackle sustainment ops? I'm the current LSCO doctrine. That's Tiffany again.
I don't know what LSCO is. You got to fill me in. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with that acronym.
She'll leave a comment. She'll leave a comment, I'm sure.
Okay. I mean, and this is military. I'm on the global. I mean, I have absolutely nothing to do. So I got something to do. I'm being funny, but for anyone who's in the military, and Otis has my email as well. If I don't get to you, please send me an email and I'll respond to you probably within an hour or two.
How about this, sir? Let's do one even better. Let's go ahead and let's
put my business in the street now.
Say again?
Don't put my business in the street now, Otis. You up there sharing all
my
information.
You don't want me to put the email? I could add the email on the bottom of the screen.
Hey, if you want to, man, I'm all about it. Just don't send me nothing crazy. It's an Army email, so you will get blocked.
Let's go into while that's happening. Let's go into the next slide.
Yeah, please do.
There you go.
All right, so this was a recommendation from Lieutenant Colonel House, based upon a conversation based upon a LPD session he did here recently, and I think a lot of junior officers were questioning him about how do you seek feedback on your evaluations, and I will say a lot of this is transferable to the civilian sector. I hope. I spent 99% of my adult life in the Army, so I don't count the times I flipped burgers at Sonic or when I worked at Circuit City. That no longer exists in college is the civilian world. So most of my experience has been in the Army. So I think the first part that we forget sometimes is that counseling is not just the senior leader's responsibility. If you go 3, 4, 5, 6 months in the job, and your immediate supervisor in the officer world, your raider, hasn't pulled you in and kind of told you where you were going, it's okay to ask. It's okay to talk to, if they have an adjutant, or if they have whatever, or if it's just, if you're a platoon leader and it's the company commander, say, hey, sir, I'd like to get on your calendar sometime, or hey, man, I want to get on your calendar sometime and talk to you about kind of how I'm doing, and see, what your thoughts are. Because what you don't want to do is after a year, you get your evaluation report and go, right? Like, what happened here, right? And so don't be afraid to ask. If you show up to an organization and you're about 1 or 2, 3 months down into your new job, your new position, and you haven't been initially counseled, meaning that the person pulls you in and tells you the expectations of people at your grade or your duties and responsibilities, or the scope of your duties and responsibilities, and ask for it. Hey, sir, I've been here for 3 months, and I'm just doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing. I really haven't got any guidance. Can you kind of sit down and counsel me? And what I've noticed is there's a direct correlation between counseling and evaluation satisfaction. People who don't get counseled normally, unless it's really good, have a problem with the OER. People who are consistently counseled and get feedback throughout, normally it's no surprises, it's no shock. There's a couple of shocks if people don't pay attention, right? And I've had that. I've had troop commanders I've counseled because I counsel quarterly, and it came OER time, and they came in my office and they looked at me crazy until I whipped that counseling paper out. I'm like, remember this we talked about? Remember you signed it? And I told you how you weren't doing very good, and you haven't changed since between the two different counseling sessions. So apparently I just wasted my time counseling because you didn't pay any attention to this. So hence, this is why you got the evaluation you got. And after that, they kind of leave with the tail between their legs and realize, yeah, I probably should have paid more attention to someone who's actually trying to counsel me. And the last thing is, hey, don't ask a question you ain't ready to receive the answer to. Okay. You might not be as good as you think you are. Right. And it's not being confrontational, but people come in there all the time. For me, it's like, well, sorry, what can I do better? That's a very loaded question. Unless you really, really did something egregious, for the most part, most people in the organization are within what I call the middle 60, right? You're just floating along. You're not, you haven't jumped up to the top 20, and you're definitely not in the bottom, right? You're just floating along, right? And that's the hardest population to manage. The top 20 will float, and those are the ones who never have any question about their evaluation because it's a good one, right? The bottom 20, they're the ones that may ask them questions that they ain't ready to receive, right? And then the middle 60, I just focus on, okay, if you were doing a bad job, you'd be fired. Let's just start with that. And if you were meeting my expectations, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Okay, so you're in the middle 60, and this is kind of how I can see you get to the top. But if you keep asking these follow-on questions, especially those who and a lot of times, especially lieutenants, come with a lot of I. Well, sir, that I went to the motor pool and I did this and I did that, and I don't know if they told you, but I did this. And you're like, that's a lot of eyes in that, brother. I mean, how big is your organization? Roughly 20, 30 people. Is it 20, 30 of yous, or is it 20, 30 of eyes? Right? It's a we thing. You're graded upon the success and failures of your organization, of your unit, right? An evaluation, yeah, part of it is you, but a majority of it is the success of your organization and whatever it is that you command, or whatever it is that you lead. So if you're coming to me talking about some eyes, that's a quick way to get swiftly, escorted out of my office, right? Yeah. Let's talk about your platoon. Let's talk about the morale. Let's talk about your HR metrics. Like, where are you at in all your medical stuff? Where are you in your medical readiness codes? Are you what percentage of your platoon is non-deployable? How many are on profile? What's your maintenance status? How many strikers do you have down right now? And do you know exactly what they are? What's the status of the parts you got on order? Now, when I start digging into that, which is all things platoon leaders should know, as an example, the conversation changes very drastically, right? Because they realize that they're focusing too much on the eye. Well, yeah. I set up this gunnery range out here. I ran this M9 qual for the whole squadron, and that is awesome, brother. I truly appreciate your hard work in doing what you're supposed to do. But let's look at the organization that you lead. Where do they rank? Hell, where do they rank within your own troop, let alone the squadron, right? In your own company, then you may be number 2 out of 2, right? So what do you think you rank and stack in the organization? So don't ask the question you're not ready to receive. And fortunately for me, I'm one of those hands-on type of leaders. So I know a lot of the questions. I know the answer to the questions before I ask them. And if I know when you don't, you're in charge of 22 people, I'm in charge of 570, we got a problem, right? You're in charge of 6 strikers, I'm in charge of 80. We got a problem, right? We got a problem here. The second reason is, what do you want to talk about? Like, what is it that you're going to talk to speak about? Are you looking for your performance feedback? See the first bullet, right? Have you seeked that counseling? Have you sought, that counseling throughout the time? Or you just said, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to do the Lord's work. I'm going to trust my 4 months in the Army to lead me where I got to go, to the promised land, right? I'm not going to talk to the guy who's been in for 8, 9 years, who's done my job, or better yet, to come to talk to the squadron commander who's been in for 22 years, who's done your job, your boss's job, and your boss's job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going for performance, by the time you get the evaluation, you missed the boat, right? Either you didn't seek it, or the people just didn't believe in giving it to you. If you sought it and you didn't get it, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
And are you trying to convince your rater or senior rater to give you a better rating? That ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. All right. So save your energy. No one, and I counsel 27 lieutenants because all my troop commanders changed that. None of them gave me any compelling argument for me to go, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna change that. Most of the time, it was already signed by the time they came to my office. I'm not about to delete the signature. I'm not gonna do all that. And plus, I did what's called lieutenant Manning conferences, and I sat down and I solicited feedback from the troop command teams and said, hey, rack and stack, here's how I do things. You got 60, 20, 20, right? Where you put your guys at. Then they racked and stacked 20, 60, 20. All right. Mm-hmm. Now they got some knife fights, for the 20, not so much for the top 20, not so much for the 60 and the bottom 20, right? And then I was the tiebreaker. I'm like, nah, he's in the top 60. He ain't in the top. He's not in the top 20, right? He's the top of the middle, or she's the top of the middle. And the thing is, that's what I say about your superior sees things that you don't. And I've learned that at every echelon of command and every echelon of in the Army. They've said things to me and I've been like, I didn't know you saw that, right? But we do. And we have spies everywhere. Now, we may not have seen it with our own eyes, but maybe the sergeant major saw it, or maybe, my XO saw it, or my S3 saw it, or my ops sergeant major saw it when he was doing battlefield circ. And they all report back to me and say, hey, sir, I just visited Alpha Troop. They were doing A, B, C, and D, man. Lieutenant so-and-so was killing out there. Okay, cool. And those are little spot reports that we use as well to build the complete picture. So, I got on the ground truth where people are just seeing. I got my own personal experience and knowledge, and I put that on there. And then I get the picture from the command teams at the troop and company level to form a complete word picture, not really a word picture, but a picture of the person. So if you're going there thinking, I'm about to give him the business, he's going to change this from a HQ to an MQ, it probably ain't going to happen. You're probably going to leave disappointed, right? So I don't think you should ever go in there into a counseling session, to be me personally, with the expectation of I'm going to make them change my evaluation, right? Mm-hmm. Because so far I've seen that happen 0 times. Okay, so I don't. That's just Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's personal experience. Lieutenant Colonel House may have had some experience where he's seen raters or senior raters change it, or even in the civilian sector, when you get evaluations as well, maybe you've seen someone go in and plead their case and it changed. I don't know. I personally have never seen that. But I would say you would be, because I'm not going to get too much into the mathematics of profiles, but once I click that box, it locks my profile, and it has second, third order effects if I start shuffling stuff around. Yeah. So I will leave it at that. But I mean, I would never I never have went into a counseling session with someone thinking I was going to plead my case like Judge Judy, and they were going to change my evaluation. I never went in there that way, because you never, because you will devolve back to saying I. Mm-hmm. And then no one in the Army wants to hear you come there and talk about how good you are, because that's not what the Army is about. And your organization is not about Google and Amazon. They're not about I either. Everyone wants to be a part of an organization. Everybody wants the team to get better. And how are you helping the team get better?
Gotcha. All right. Well, sir, is there anything else at all you want to share regarding the slides? Because this is the final slide here.
No, I mean, unless folks have some questions about the slides. I mean, this was a good recommendation from Colonel House.
So if you have any questions at all or comments, feel free to send them in as we give our, parting comments. Sir. So we do have one. We do have one coming in. Here we go. It says, completely agree. Never seen anyone change an evaluation. I've seen them explain in candid details, which helps the officer. I would say all the civilian as well. As President Crystal said last night, you want to be as blunt and as honest with people, so that you aren't, giving them a false sense of, security, a false sense of where they're at. People need to know where they're at so that they can either adjust, fire, or, as you said earlier, maybe find a different career path.
Yeah, that, and it's human nature wants you to know where you stand and rank in an organization. It's human nature. I've been unfortunately more organizations than not. I've just been rowing and praying that come evaluation time, I come out on the positive side of the meat grinder, right? Because I may have gotten initial counseling, and then my next counseling is when you get that daunting email from the S1 saying your OER is ready to be signed. If you want to talk about it, get on the calendar, right? Unfortunately, that's more. Or you get the notice from the S1 when you've already PCS from an organization. You're on leave to the next one that says, "Hey, your OER is ready," so you have even no opportunity to plead your case or talk to anybody. But candid feedback is all. I've had that happen more times than not, brother. It's unfortunate, but candid feedback. That's one thing. If you can't tell from my demeanor right now, that's one thing I'm a pro at. Right? Is candid feedback, and that's from my time at HRC, because I've had to explain to people that because their chain of command hasn't, and I had the luxury of being able to pull up their evaluations. When they call me and they say, hey man, I didn't get picked up for major, like what happened? And I go, okay, let me pull up your file real quick. And I look through it and I'm like, okay, since I have no skin in the game, you're not anywhere near my rating scheme. I'm not in yours. Let me break down what this evaluation says, right? Like you think it means this, but this is what it really means, right? Because at the end of the day, this is way off topic, but at the end of the day, someone in an organization is going to be number 1, 2, or 3. Somebody. Yeah. At all times, somebody. If you ain't that person, then I got to kind of read in between the fluff on what someone's trying to say. And then if your OER is fluffy, and then that's where that candid feedback is. Hey, sir, I got it. I'm not number 1, 2, or 3. But what can I do to get to number 1, 2, or 3? That's really for the senior rater level, because I don't counsel platoon leaders every quarter because I got 1,000 of them, right? So yeah, when they come and see me, the type of question I expect to hear is, hey, sir, someone's walking around here with 1, 2, or 3. And when I asked my senior rater here last month about my OER, that's what I asked him. I say, hey, sir, someone with your name on an OER has 1, 2, or 3. It ain't me. So what I got to do, right? I'm being very candid right now, but what I got to do, right? And so, that's kind of how I approached it. And I think if you approach it that way, you'll get some very candid feedback versus trying to go in there and lay your case out on why you should be 1, 2, or 3. There's difference. Hey, sir, I should be 1, 2, or 3, and here's why. Versus, hey, sir, I got it. I'm not number 1, 2, or 3. And I understand why. I like to know. That's your privy, it's your prerogative. I got that, but I'd like to know for this next go around, how can I be number 1, 2, or 3? What is number 1, 2, or 3 showing you that I'm not? And I think if you go in that way, you'll get very candid feedback, and you won't put your rater on the defense, because that's what you don't want to do. Hey, sir, I should be number 1 because I did this, and then you lost them, right? And now you're gonna get the business, right? And no one wants to get the business, right? So those are my thoughts, and thank you for your comment.
I agree. Well, sir, unless we have more comments coming in, I think that's the end of our presentation. I really appreciate the time you took to send the information over, that you took the past hour just telling folks about, how do you define success, and you just breaking it down to them about how military leaders will think, how it also it's horizontal to, it crosses into human resources as well. We do have a question coming in. Another question. What's that, sir?
I had a gnat in my room, but go ahead. You good? You good?
It was wearing you out. It says, one question from the commander's standpoint.
Yeah.
What is the number 1 shortfall of junior officers? Is it tactical and technical, know, or doctrine? No, they probably mean know-how or doctrine.
Yeah, I got you. So I'm gonna speak on the armor branch per se. for the armor branch, we create jacks of all trades and masters of none, right? So when you get a junior officer in, they come with a very baseline knowledge of everything, of doctrine and tactics. And I think it's neither. I think the biggest shortfall of junior officers is not tactical or technical. I could train that. I could train you all day on that. I think the number one shortfall is in personality and leadership. A lot of junior officers, you gotta understand, a lot of them are almost in the same generation as their soldiers. Think about that. So when you study generations, I'm a Generation X, I think. And so these are all millennials for the most part, I think. So a lot of times they will take the side of the soldier, and it's what I call likership, right? Likership versus leadership. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll come into my office to advocate for a soldier, and they won't see the complete picture. They'll just see what the soldier is telling them, and they're looking at them like they want to hug them and squeeze them and be their BFF with them. And that's great until they get in trouble. Then where do your loyalties lie? And a lot of times that's why when I initially counsel everybody, I tell you my loyalties are very easy. Army, unit, soldier, right? In that order. So when someone comes across me, my loyalty is to do what's best for the Army. My second loyalty is what's best for the unit. And my third loyalty is what's best for the soldier. A lot of junior officers just invert it. So they come into my office and they're like, sir, I just implore you, please don't take, rank, or don't take their money. They got 7 kids, they got 2 dogs, they just bought a brand new scooter. I mean, it'll crush him. Like, okay, well, he had a positive UA for cocaine, right? So when he had a positive UA for cocaine, he was married, he had kids, he had a scooter, he had a dog, but he didn't care about financial hardship then because he was still buying cocaine, right? Yep. So I think the junior officers have to quickly find the balance between and understanding what taking care of soldiers truly means. That doesn't mean giving them 3-day weekends every week. That doesn't mean, it means training, maintaining, equipping, and then making sure that they're taken care of in terms of having all the basic necessities of life. How are they living? How are their barracks rooms? Doing their barracks checks, all that stuff. Making sure they're paying their bills. Because a lot of times we get a soldier and we think they're raised, right? But they're 17 years old. They're fresh out of high school. It's the first time that they've had to wash their own clothes, mop their room. A lot of them wake themselves up in the morning. Got a consistent paycheck that's not too bad. When I was a private, it was a lot worse. So I think that's the biggest downfall is trying to be their friend and not their leader. That's the biggest one. Tactics and technical stuff, I'll train that. If they sit down with a private for 1 week, they'll get all the technical stuff, right? They'll understand how to work a striker, how to PMCS, how to do all that. Tactics, if they sit down, one field problem, or get the tactic stuff straight. It's that other stuff that gets them in a lot of trouble, in my opinion.
We got another question coming in.
Coming in hot. What we got?
Another question. How would you describe the distinction between your company grade and field grade officers? Specifically, how do you assess them? And what is is the criteria the same for the two?
Not at all. Completely different skill sets, right? Field grade officers are organizational leaders, right? So they are to a lot of extent up and out, right? So they are how do they interact with regiment or brigade? Because I will tell you what, my job is I'm the one who's shaking hands and kissing babies, right? My job at the brigade level is to build a good relationship with the brigade staff. The same with the field grades, right? They interact with brigade and they fight for resources. They fight for training area. They take the company's training plans and they go to brigade and they just fight for it, right? And they fight and they fight and they fight. And then that's from the 3 side. From the XO side, he's doing all the other stuff, right? He's making sure that our HR metrics are squared away. He's making sure all the reports get turned in on time. He handles all the SIRs that come into the squadron if something bad happens to somebody. He does all of that. And really it's how do they influence outside of the battalion or the squadron? That's what I assess field grade officers on. Company grade officers are still in that direct leadership mode, right? So yeah, I'm tactically, we'll be okay. We'll figure it out. But more, I grade them on how well they're doing at taking care of their soldiers' additional needs in terms of all we just talked about. Personnel stuff, where they at on D93s and the SGLVs. That's for the civilian. That's like our life insurance policy. SGLVs is our life insurance. How well are they on making sure that their soldiers' life insurance policies are up to date? How well are they in making sure that their soldiers are getting their shots, getting their physicals, getting their hearing, getting their dental, that type of stuff. They're still in that fuzzy area, but they're still focusing down. Field grade officers up and out, right? Because I'm not going to sit down with it. I go to sit down with the brigade 3 every once in a while to kind of talk through things, but that's my 3's job. I sit with the regimental or the brigade XO to kind of get a feel for the boss on certain things and see how he's been going left and right. But that's the XO's job. He liaisons with all those people, and he herds the cats of the staff. Company grade officers are focused down, right? They're focused on how do I, build lethal squads in my organization. I, as a squadron commander, build lethal platoons. You build lethal squads. The brigade commander builds lethal companies. So, but they get evaluated on all that stuff, because if you look at it, I spend very small amounts of time in the field, right? I'm not spending none right now, but before I spent a lot going in TC, and I haven't spent a lot coming back. So, how do you build a training plan to address the shortfalls of your unit? How do you assess your unit in terms of training and physical fitness, and in terms of their overall health of your organization? Your health includes the spiritual, physical, and mental health. It also includes those things, those admin stuff that we just don't want to do. But it's the stuff that gets us in trouble. Unfortunately for me, I've lost 3 soldiers since I've been in command. And 2 of those 3, their paperwork was not the way it should have been, and it caused a little bit of hiccup. So I'm very hard on them when it comes to making sure that the soldiers' admin stuff is taken care of. That's how I would assess the 2. Field grades up and out. How do you liaison? Are you ruining the reputation that I've built at the brigade because you're just such a butthole, and you don't know how to treat people? Or are you augmenting it to where people are gnawing at the bit to come and be in my organization? That's the field grade. Troop commanders down in mentoring, coaching, and teaching those squad leaders and those platoon leaders on what right looks like.
Okay. We got another question coming in.
Coming in hot. What we got?
How impactful are promotional purposes? Will it hurt if a junior officer has an old GOMAR placed in their restricted file versus their local file?
Local file, not at all. Restricted file, it just depends on what type of board it is. I would tell you local file means just that. Like when you leave, it gets shredded, right? It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't leave whatever station you're at. Now I would tell you this. Now I'm dated. Caveat. Public service announcement. I left HRC in 2012. Restricted files back a long time ago, when they're looking to trim the fat, they opened them up and they pulled the restricted file into the permanent file. So you got people who were majors who had stuff in their file as a lieutenant who got put out of the Army during this big cut, right? When we said we were too heavy, and then we came back and said we need more, right? And we brought them all back in. But I think if it's in your restricted file, it's not as bad as if it was on your permanent file, which means they decided to put it on there, because in your permanent file, when you go in front of the board, like let's just say I got Otis in front of me, and I know Otis. I love Otis. I know Otis is a phenomenal leader. And so I see his board, file comes up, and I'm voting on him. And I go, well, you know what? I'm gonna skip this GOMAR that he has. I ain't gonna look at it. I'm not gonna worry about it. I know Otis. Otis is my boy. When I go to vote, it'll tell me, oh no, brother, you ain't read his GOMAR, or you ain't read his derogatory information. So it won't even let me vote on you to let you go by without me pulling up your derogatory information. So a restricted file, I don't think it's that draconian. I think it's in there, but you know, with the Army, man, you never know. They may go for a cut again and say, hey, open up all the restricted files for a board. And then when they open them up, brother, I mean, if they're looking to trim the fat, they're going to start with you first, unfortunately. But that's if they open the files up. And you know, Lieutenant Colonel House, you know, who's at HRC now, probably has more relevant information. I don't think they just open them up now arbitrarily. I think it's part of the MILPER message for the board. It'll tell you, hey, we're opening your files up. And then, you know, I think it'll be extremely impactful for promotion or for anything if they do that and they can actually review that file.
Okay. Well, any other questions or comments coming in? I don't think we have any. All right. Well, sir, I appreciate it. I think everyone appreciates what you've done today. You know, a lot of folks are thankful for the information that you shared. And if you'd like, we'd like to have you invite others, or if you want to come back again and talk with us, let us know.
Hey, man, I am always down. I love this type of stuff, man. It's kind of what I live for. So, I mean, I ain't got that many more years in the Army, so you can use me till you use me up, like old Bill Withers said. But yeah, man, I would love to come back on again. You just give me the time and the date, which one we to talk about. And I want to thank you, man. This was great. I look forward to this, and it was a blast. I love it. Thank you.
Too easy. Thank you, sir. All right. We will talk to you later. All right, sir. Thank you.
All right.
So we had a good time today talking with Colonel Morrison. If you want, you could check in with us. We're going to have interviews pretty much every day. We've got some heavy hitters coming up. I'm sure that you all will enjoy it. And as I always say, you know, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of others. Peace.